Gemara digresses all the time, if you want.
We are on page 41 of the bottom, 1316. Visamti mercha, and I will put, lightly connected to what's come from before, but mostly moving us forward into what's going to go after. In order to perpetuate your seed, meanwhile, I shall adjust them accordingly, and I will put certain qualities in their character and style of living, as indicated by the directional shape of the reading mark. So this is much different from the way that this phrase is normally interpreted. This phrase is normally v'samti et zaracha kechol hayam. You read the whole part together. I'm going to make your children to be as numerous as the grains of sand. So v'samti means I'm going to make them. But here, when we have to have each word sitting by itself and relating a story of its own, what he's saying is not that I'm going to make them, I'm going to put something into them. V'samti, I'm going to put it into them. So when we have to have the word sitting by itself, all of a sudden we've sort of turned this into a completely different thought. That rather than I'm going to make their number such, I'm going to give them something such that they deserve what they're going to get. Et zaracha, with a tipcha, so this is backwards focused and pausing slightly afterwards, with your seed, number 2. Those attributes will go along with your seed wherever they might choose their temporary domicile, as shown by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So these are characteristics that they're going to have no matter where they end up going. So again, we're focused on visamti, on what God is going to place into them, rather than saying that God is going to bless them with numbers. Ka'afar, like the dust, with a munach separated out from what's come from before. So now God's going to put this into them, and now we're going to get a separate thought that ka'afar, number 3, because they will be the most ignored part of the society and treated with indignity like dust of no value, everyone will step on them, and nobody will react in their defense. They will preserve their individuality and purity, as stressed by the shape of the reading mark. They're going to be distinct from the rest of society because of the place that God is going to put into them, and therefore they are going to maintain their characteristics that they were given. So again, this is completely different than what anybody else says about this sentence. Haaretz, the land, number 4, with the stabilizing et nachta, paradoxically compared to dust, which is the most useful part of the land, also your seed will make basic contributions to civilization, as noted by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So when you say haaretz rather than ha'adama, you're already saying a social or a societal context, rather than an agricultural or a geographical context. So because we've identified it as haaretz, the land, which has therefore defined borders, it is a social idea, the things that they have are going to stabilize the society in which they end up in. Asher, with a munach. So again, we're coming into the phrase munach revi'i. We have come across that a couple of times, and even though it is not written here, there is a psik, there is a strong, hard pause after this first word, in between the two notes that are exactly the same. The munach and the next word has a munach as well. So this is going to be something that, by the character of munach, is separated out from what's come from before. Try to go forward, and then it hits another dead stop. So let's see how that plays out. Number 5. However, there will also be other qualities within them that will compare to dust, as suggested by the shape of the reading mark followed by a psik. So they're going to be treated like dust, but by the way, they're going to have some of the characteristics of dust as well. And here we're going to take dust, which we've just said is something that's lowly, and we're going to say the high thing about dust. So,
building blocks. You can't build anything without.
No, it's nothing to sneeze at.
So again, like dust. we've said the same words sort of twice, and once in a derogatory sense, and the next time in a complimentary sense. So we have a couple of features that we're going to describe. They will be universally distributed to prevent total eradication, as the Gemara says, "Stakaka asakadosh baruch hu im Yisrael shepsaran levein haumot." God has done the people of Israel a charitable favor that He spread them out in between all of the nations. A place hermetically protected from dust is also deprived of life. So if they couldn't have spread to all of those places wouldn't have benefited from their influence, and therefore the people of Israel spread like dust because they need to be there to influence others. And by the way, in being in different places, if one society fails, there's some of them in the society that has succeeded.
That's why they have bunnies wherever there's dust.
And second feature of dust is stepped on.
That's it. You won't be able to count it.
Dust is stepped on. Not only is it indestructible, but it becomes cemented and solidified. It may also have some internal elasticity, acting like a compressed spring to go off at the convenient time. The people of Israel can be stepped on, and they still.
Shmuel, what's that pasuk? Kasher Yanu Ken Yifrot.
Kasher Yanu Ken Yirbeh Ken Yifrot.
Oh, you're best. That's perfect.
So the sentence talks about the Jews in Egypt. The more the Egyptians tried to torture them, the more they would both grow in number and spread out geographically. So that fits very well with the theme that we're talking about, dust here. Im yuchal. So again, a munach, but this one separated from before, but now does have the ability to continue afterwards, to convince you that heavenly foresight is involved in the goal of your seed. Consider if could be attained by wisdom to make a better kind of arrangement, as expressed by the shape of the reading mark. So, giving the Jewish people of the future these characteristics gives them the ability to last for eternity. And he's saying, can you think of a better way to ensure that, given the way that societies change and people change over time and so on? We're told that after the flood there are 70 descendants of Noah, and all of these manage to form distinct identities, and yet after a while all of these distinct identities really disappear, and none of them have a purity that has remained except for the Jewish people.
Well, blacks are good in maybe you should are good in basketball and stuff like that. That's not a national identity.
Hip hop culture.
Yes, that will be around 1,000 years from now, I'm sure. Ish with a rivi'i, number 7. So this has a broadness to it. And before, remember, we said that when we say this word ish, we're not only talking about man or woman, sometimes we're talking about a man of importance as well. Even if there is a man with the greatest talent, his abilities would be inadequate to reach heavenly estimation, as signified by the broad meaning of the reading mark. So, even if there is a man of consequence, he's still going to remain a man. He's going to be spread out in his earthly realm, and he's not going to be able to reach heavenly proportions. Limnot with a pashta, so this is focusing us forward and elevating the word slightly. For counting, number 8. If there were someone outstanding would he be capable for counting and give an accurate amount of innumerable substances, as illustrated by the directional shape of the reading mark? Wasn't quite sure what we were getting at here, other than to make the same point that we said in the previous paragraph, that there is no man who is going to live up to heavenly principles, even if he is an outstanding man. Et afar, with dastav, with the munach, separated from what's come from before, but mostly moving us forward. When he deals with dust of one area only, he shall fail to express the quantity and the quality of it, as conveyed by the shape of the reading mark. So, again, I think what we're saying here is the characteristic that God is going to put into us is the ability to be in multiple places where we've been spread out, and not to be dependent on being the victor in any situation, or being the dominant culture in any sense, but rather to survive in the crevices between, with the ability to elevate from within rather than to lead from above.
Where's crevices? You said the crevices by yourself?
Yes.
I missed that part.
It's what we've said sort of in the other sentence about, or the other paragraph about what we said dust was.
Oh.
Something that's universally distributed in order to prevent total eradication. So that's what he said before.
More under my bed.
It's Jewish dust, it's okay. Haaretz, the land, with the katon, so a two-part note, one part perhaps higher than the other. It would be so much more difficult and inaccurate if he were to try to count the dust of all the land combined. It would be impossible, as pointed out by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. And again, I wasn't quite sure the point that we were getting at here. So Rashi always takes the sentence and says that this is a measure of blessing, that it will be so innumerable that nobody can count. But here he's saying that that's an aspect of the land, and I'm not quite sure if he's talking about land in a political sense or land in a geographical sense here, or just saying the way that dust is related to land is that it's an infinitesimally small part of something else.
What I think what he's doing is focusing on the bipartite, which means you can't do it, and then working backwards, saying just like the bipartite thing is telling us you can't achieve it because so you can't do it, and he's saying, what can you not do? Count all the dust on earth. You know what I mean? I think he's just working backwards, saying that the two dots are telling us it's not possible.
It's not possible, and yet God is going to make it possible.
Okay. I don't know.
What I'm saying here is that, like, if he just said the Jews are going to be like dust of the earth, then all those meanings would come in. But so why does he mention? So obviously he's not talking about a numbers game, because Jews have never been, even before we're never big in numbers. In fact, we're chosen because we're not big enough. So why does it say them not then? You know what I mean? It makes it sound like he is talking literally. If you won't be able to count them. They'll be so numerous.
Oh, it's okay.
I have an answer.